Hello, and welcome to Everything Remade, a podcast that I hope is about growth as much as it is about music. I'm Sean Decker, and I'd like you to hear something. You're listening to Mason Kid by Indisposed, featuring my new friend, Nina Palumbo, on guitar and vocals. Not to start this off on too cheesy of a note, but meeting new people like Nina and becoming friends is the reason why I do this.
I was born in Chicago. I didn't actually grow up with any siblings. I was an only child. But my mom and my dad kind of pushed me to do the arts in general, not primarily music, but they always encouraged me to draw and do a lot of art, and that was kind of my thing growing up. I even went to art school after college or after high school because I thought that that's where my life was going to go. But I kind of had to find music on my own when I was a teenager. And, I started with just punk bands like Minor Threat, even listening to Dookie by Green Day.
Yeah.
And even teaching myself guitar. I had an instructor for a little bit, but I wasn't really good at listening when I was 13 or 14. And he would just teach me tabs, and I thought, well, I can go online for that. So it was a lot of just teaching myself, starting out with a crap ton of Green Day songs, and then doing a lot of Thursday. I loved Thursday growing up.
Oh, yeah.
And Circus Survive, and kind of going down that hole with that kind of music. And I practically lived on allmusic.com trying to determine where's this sound coming from? What was this band influenced by, and kind of backtracking and getting into Sunny Day Real Estate and Texas Is the Reason and bands kind of like that.
That's awesome. That research is not something I think a lot of people, that reminds me of, back when you'd have to scour magazines and stuff, except you were doing it digitally. It was just when you really liked one band and you find out which thing it is you like the best about that band. If it was the drummer, then you were I need to know everything about every band that drummer's been in, or something to that effect. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So William Goldsmith, he was in the Foo Fighters, but he was also in Sunny Day Real Estate. So it was kind of like that. Yeah. Living on Wikipedia articles, and the sources were kind of limited online back then, but there were forums and stuff where I could find stuff.
Yeah, for sure. But going back even further, in grade school or anything, did you play any instruments?
I think I took piano lessons, but I wasn't very good at it at all. Yeah. I thought being good at piano was ignoring musical signature and just seeing how fast I could play it. So it was so annoying for my instructor, and I didn't stick with it very long.
That's funny that you that you put it that way, because it's got it makes no oh, it's no wonder you wind up playing like heavy, punk influenced music, like just trying to play it as fast as I could.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, for sure. Um, so you're neither one of your parents played music, but they always encouraged you. And then you did mention that you wound up at the academy. I'm sorry. It's American Academy of Art in Chicago, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. Yeah, my parents were like they were in high school band, but they didn't like really share their musical interests with me. Like my dad listened to a lot of like Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and kind of like older music, and then my mom was into like the Beatles and Creedence Clearwater Revival and stuff like that. But when they saw I was like getting into music, they just encouraged it and they just supported it. And yeah, I went to the American Academy of Art, but that choice was determined kind of by a teacher who entered me into a scholarships contest without my knowledge that I ended up getting. And then I was like, well, I guess I'm going here. Um,
yeah,
I didn't really want to go to college. And I went to like a very academic school, but something like by the time I was like 16 or 17, like that high school apathy, like existential crisis, like kicked in, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't want to do anything.
yeah,
So I just went with art because that seemed to be where my skills were at the time. But I was very unsure.
yeah. Do you think going to the American Academy of Art, do you think that stoked your interest, or did you feel like you were just still owning your skills that were already, were already there, or did it?
It, it was definitely like fumbling through and like doing something because I thought like I wasn't involved in like music like as a scene at all at that time, but I really wanted to be, and I just wasn't like aware of the DIY scene in Chicago or anything. So I like my interest in music was isolated, and it would be paired with art like a lot. Like I did like mock album covers. I remember of like an Alta album, even
Oh,
though like
awesome.
no one, yeah, like no one I knew was like listening to that. Like I didn't know anyone aside from maybe a boyfriend in college who was like into screamo. So I like music was still like present for me, and like I like dreamed of doing music in a band. It's just I didn't know people with common interests. So like even after I graduated, as time went on, like I did meet one person in college whose high school friend was like into emo, and then we kind of got into the music scene together in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds like, and I could be wrong. It kind of sounds like you had a lot of time with your instrument before you ever got into a band.
Yeah, yeah. I would, because I mean, throughout high school, like I'd be listening to bands like that I couldn't really talk about. I couldn't really talk about them with anyone. Maybe like one person who was like into like the Fuse era of like pop emo when like Taking Back Sunday and do you remember Fuse TV when that
No,
was like a thing?
I'm not. I don't know that.
Oh yeah, there was this like great show called like Steven's Entitled Rock Show, and they would like showcase like Fugazi videos and like just all these weird bands. Like they showed like Lifetime,
Oh, that's awesome.
just everything under the sun. But yeah, I pretty much spent like a lot of time just like trying to learn like all these different styles. I loved like folk music. I loved like Elliott Smith. I loved like percussive guitarists and like Antoine Dufour and Kaki King, stuff that was kind of like really removed from screamo.
Uh-huh.
But like I would try to like cover those songs by ear, like using that style of playing, which was really weird for a bit. And like Indisposed was even like a bedroom project with that style of music before I met anybody. So yeah, it was kind of lonely, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I reckon it definitely could be.
Yeah.
Well, so while you were playing by yourself and just learning, um,
Hmm.
how did like how did just playing make you feel like? I mean, did you just know, well, it'll happen someday, and then just playing for a while was just like, how did you feel like? Um, uh, I often feel like I am I'm reaching like certain levels in my playing ability, and then there's like a ceiling there I can't get past. Did you ever
Yeah.
feel that way, or you were just not conscious of that because you weren't playing with other people that?
Um, yeah, kind of like hoarding my playing and like my writing to myself. Like if I was never able to share it, then I was never able to kind of like build up confidence as a guitar player. So I didn't have like kind of like that validation outside. Maybe like there were guitar classes in high school that I would take, and someone would be like, "Oh, are you playing August Burns Red?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." Like outside of that, like yeah, I would get stuck, but I would try to like play it just a different way, or like remove some elements of it. But yeah, it was definitely weird not to have like people to like mirror back parts to me, which is like now and like Indisposed, and like I was in another project as a fill-in, but I was able to like create some like riffs and an alternate tuning, and that was totally cool. And they would kind of validate that and be like, oh yeah, that works. It was definitely kind of rough. But yeah, I would, the only validation I would get maybe aside from that would be like I would play coffee shops doing like original material, but like it was on an acoustic guitar.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
What was the first guitar you got?
Oh man, it was a hand me down. It was so okay, it was my mom's guitar, but I know I said she wasn't musical, but she had she never played it, and it was like this old like vintage guitar. It didn't have like any brand on it or anything, like from like the 70s, and it was like falling apart. Like the strings hadn't been changed like in like a decade, and like the bridge was coming off of it, so the action was atrocious. Like the strings were like a mile from the fretboard.
Oh goodness.
But like I didn't know any better, and that like built up finger strength pretty fast.
Uh-huh.
So trying to play like, punk songs on this ridiculous guitar, like I don't know. When I got to like when I bought like a Yamaha, I don't know what kind of Yamaha it is. I still have it. I bought it when I was 18. It's like night and day. I was like, man, why didn't I get a guitar like this before?
Yeah. But you're
yeah.
almost better for it in a way, because you did
Yeah.
you did the hard work first. I have a guitar that's like really needs to be. It's not a. I mean, it's an Epiphone SG, but it's just like the worst. It's got the worst like setup. Like it's never been like actually set up, and it's just got the worst action out of like probably any guitar I've ever played. I've never ordered something like from Musician's Friend or whatever and got one with action that bad. But I was like,
Oh man.
I'll deal with that when the time comes, but for now, I guess when it's time to practice for a tour or something, this isn't a bad way to go, cuz it makes playing on a decent guitar later like seem really easy. It's
Yeah, definitely.
It's almost a confidence builder in a way. Just like if
Yeah,
I can play
yeah.
it well on this, then I got this,
Is there like fret buzzing and stuff
No,
on
not
it?
that bad. It's just it's just
Okay.
real hard to get get the strings down where they're supposed to. Like it's not supposed to be hard. It's supposed to just go, but it's you
Yeah.
really feel like you're crunching your hand, to do it.
Yeah, it's like lifting dumbbells with your fingertips, but it's like the fretboard of a guitar.
Yeah, yeah.
It's always better. Like even now, like in Indisposed, like I write everything acoustic first,
Right.
just because that's like the way I wrote like as a teenager and in college, and I feel like if I'm gonna do something when I go into the practice space with them, I want to be able to like play it as best as possible. And I just noticed, yeah, if I play it on acoustic, kind of okay. Maybe like if I'm tremming something and it's a little floppy, I know that when I play it on electric, it's going to be a million times better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Do you ever
yeah.
do you ever have something that's like that you're playing like really open on acoustic, and then when you go to play it on electric, some of the notes disappear, and then in that way you almost have to re-evaluate it, like, well, I really need to kind of not hit this so open. If I want that one particular note to come out, I kind of just need to knock that one.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
All the time. Or even like if I'm writing something that, yeah, there's a lot of like I finger pick everything. It's kind of weird. Like even in Indisposed, like I don't use a pick.
Oh,
So it's weird. There's a lot of open notes, and usually like if I'm encountering that, I'm just like, this should probably be part of the bass or something.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Just sort of like deconstruct it in a way.
You have to do that kind of thing a lot because, in, well, I guess in a lot of the projects I'm involved in, I'll write two guitar parts, just not even sure if you're ever gonna play that song live, you know. So you just want to make it as good as you can, and then you write two guitars, and the other people involved want to play the song, and then you say, well, I had to mix these two guitar parts better, and then kind of that thing too, like, well, what if the bass just did this particular thing instead? And I don't know, it's really
Yeah.
interesting, so many, just different ways to look at that.
Yeah. So like when you write, I don't know, is this kind of, can I like ask questions back? Is this
Hey, wait a minute. Yeah, of course, yeah. Go for it.
okay? So like when did you start collaborating then? Like because I've listened to Coma Regalia like since like college time.
Oh. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
um, well, kind of my first band, no one else, like the other people that I played with, they didn't write songs. They didn't necessarily want to write songs. They just want to like write their own parts. So I'd
Yeah.
have kind of like the whole song and they'd play. But then another band I was in, like one of the people in it thought that the best way to do it was to just have your songs and then my songs. So that was kind of just like
Yeah.
not very collaborative either. In Coma Regalia, when we started, it was a lot of just I I had not been in a band really in a long time, and I had just started recording. Just I don't. I had actually a cassette deck that you could plug a microphone into, and because I didn't even have a smartphone yet, and I was like, just record like riffs on this cassette deck, and then when I
That's sweet.
when I started Coma Regalia, I just the other person would come up and I would just play the stuff on this cassette, and we would sit there and like turn it into songs. And yeah, I mean, anymore it's real different because there's so many, I guess, versions of Coma Regalia. There's kind of like
Yeah.
there's kind of a longer touring version, and then there's kind of a shorter touring version. And we've done recordings where like I just show someone the songs. We've done recordings where I just like Jason and I just started a recording after our European tour over the summer, where I just was like, play this kind of beat and play this kind of beat and then play this kind of beat, and like we had no idea what we were gonna do with it, but we were just like, let's just throw these beats together that might or might not make sense and write something that way. So I mean, it's really cool just how you can just, I mean, it's music, you know? Like, there's
Yeah,
nothing that says you have to do anything any kind of way. Just, have a good time.
for sure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that the dream personally is like if someone has a bunch of beats, like that's like if our drummer, his name's Goose, he's quite the character. If he just throws out like, oh, I have like a minute and a half of like these different drums and all the transitions, like, and if I wrote to that would be like that's like a dream. And sometimes he has stuff that he just plays and I just like react to that, and that's the easiest for me personally,
Oh,
is
yeah.
writing to drum.
Yeah, I have a project where I do exactly that, except that's a secret.
Oh, well, sometime soon, I hope.
It's no, it's already on the Middleman Bandcamp. It's just, I don't know. Maybe people know
Oh,
who it is. Maybe people don't. I don't know. But
so like,
yeah, writing
so
to drums is cool.
it's something that's up there, but like your name's not listed, so I have to go through like hundreds of releases to figure out which one.
Maybe I'll just tell you after we're done recording.
Okay.
But
Tight.
but yeah, I'm gonna have to get an NDA on that. Uh,
Tread from the Bannister swings my downs, the voices, the coaxing, coercive, and loud they say, there's your way. There's your way. So much depends on maintaining equilibrium. But do I have that strength? All my life is here, but
So, we've been talking about Indisposed, and we've been talking about how hard it was for you to meet up with people to play. Were they the first people that you met up with to play with?
Like the first band that like I started writing with, you mean?
Yeah, or was that your first band in general, or what was your
Um,
first band like?
yeah. So my first band. So rewinding like back to college time, I was dating somebody who had that high school friend who was like into emo music, and I met him at like there's a store like around Naperville. It was like a used books and record store called Second and Charles, and we were doing like an open mic thing, and he was playing, and I was playing, and we met up, and he moved to Logan Square, and I started like hanging around him, and we did this web series for a short period called Capos and Coffee, where we had like local Chicago musicians like come on and like do like a live session acoustic, and I met musicians that way.
Oh,
And yeah, it was weird. I met a lot of the people who are now associated with like Mother Evergreen and Good Brother, and Laverne in Chicago.
okay.
And I was a fill-in guitarist on a tour. It was a side project of a band called Island of Misfit Toys, and that's kind of
right.
how that's how I met everybody. And we did like a East Coast tour, Philly, like Boston, and it was pretty wild for me. Like I was like, oh well, like 6 months ago, I didn't know anybody in music. Now I'm filling in. It was really like a shock, and like, oh, I could talk about these bands finally with people.
That's awesome. And so that was the first time you went on tour? Was as a fill-in?
Yeah, and that was the only time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, coming up though, Indisposed is touring in October, and I'm very stoked for that.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah,
Where are you going?
we're doing Akron. We're doing Kalamazoo, Philly, New York, North Carolina, and then Richmond.
Okay.
Yeah. We're gonna play with like Gift from God, and I'm
yeah.
so stoked.
Yeah. Yeah, those are my
Yeah.
pals. Yeah.
Definitely, I booked it, and I'm jittery about it, but yeah, it should be a good time.
Oh yeah, you'll have a great time. I mean, they'll definitely show you a good time. What was the tour like as a fill-in? Did that just make you like that much more determined to get your own thing going, or were there like ups and downs, or?
Yeah. Well, I was asked to fill in when the guy from that project had heard my band camp, which was Indisposed at the time, but it was just a bedroom project where I was like doing the drums, the guitar, the bass. I was like, it was MIDI drums though.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was like teaching guitar at the time while I was trying to like do freelance art, and the freelance art wasn't really working, and I was in just a much better mood, like playing music and teaching, and I was just kind of like, I have to stop lying to myself, just do music. So when I got back from that tour, I burnt myself out with all these commissions for bands, and I realized like I really don't care about the art. I only care about the music. So I started a project with, I started Indisposed with Dan Soller of Akari, who I met shortly after the tour just by going to more shows, and my friend Rebecca. And then I met our first guitarist Noah at like a poetry reading / like music show, and I was like, okay, this is it. It's no longer a bedroom project. Let's make this a real project. And I want it to be collaborative. I'm tired of like writing alone. Yeah, it definitely like changed my perspective for sure, and made me realize like I don't want to really do art anymore.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I don't do art anymore. I'm a coder now. I do like software just so I can be able to tour. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, because I was looking at your site, and yeah, you had links to Society 6, and you had links to like a store, and I also was previously unaware about the coding and the software projects that you did, and I was gonna ask, like, excuse me, I was gonna ask what do you feel like the main, like, what are your main motivations, like the differences between like your software projects and your illustration projects? But it sounds like you've kind of been focusing on just the more on one thing and not the other.
Yeah, yeah. I did like a coding boot camp for a short period, and it was around the time our first EP was released, and that was so time consuming. It was like 12 hours a day. I just told myself I need to change careers so I could like move out of my living situation, because I was still stuck at home with my parents, which was a huge bummer,
Yeah.
and be able to, just be independent. I felt like I didn't feel very autonomous, like, of my life, and I just wanted to like take control of it, and do software, just because it to be honest, like, it was just a lot more stable than what I was doing. And I thought, well, if I just had like software as my 9 to 5 and just kept doing music, I would be happy in it. Like, I've never been happier doing what I'm doing now. The stuff on the website is just to look good, for recruiters and people who were looking to hire me. But
Well, it does look
yeah,
good. I mean, I'll give you that. Like, I think, yeah, I think I think there's some really great illustration work there. I mean, that's just my, you know,
thanks.
yeah, of course.
Maybe someday.
Yeah, I mean, when I was thinking, while you're saying that it's kind of, it's like when you're trying to establish your band, you're trying to, like, I don't know, make connections, or just like you're just trying to get out there, get your band
Yeah.
out there. And I was thinking that, the parallels between that and trying to do the same thing as an illustrator must be kind of exhausting. And so maybe that, not
Yeah.
necessarily in your case, but in some people's cases, maybe that would be a lot to really, and I could see how someone would be like, look, I got to pick one or the other, because
Yeah.
yeah,
It definitely was, because like you could look at both as like freelancing, right? Like, but yeah, the amount of like self-promotion that you have to do with art, and the amount of self-promotion that you have to do with music, it just felt like it was way too much to manage. And I don't know, like, I could like draw for, 10 hours and then just not want to draw for a week. I could play guitar for 10 hours and still not be able to like put it down.
Yeah.
So that was like a big indicator.
Yeah. And I mean, hopefully when you, the band versus, like you mentioned, self-promotion, well, in a band, hopefully, the 3 or 4 other people in your band are also working as hard to like do that same
For
thing.
sure.
So it doesn't feel like, it's such an uphill battle, maybe, if you're looking at it that way.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, like, hopefully with anyone's, like, anything someone's passionate about, hopefully have people in their lives that are supportive and encouraging and whatever. But yeah, when you're trying to do something like just you and just, really go for it, it's easier when there's, it's something you're involved in with other people,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think like the mentality of like music and DIY, it's just a lot more welcoming than, let's say, like a fine art scene. Like, I didn't like having art shows like, if I was in like a collaborative art show and like there were a bunch of people showcasing work, it was kind of like every person for themselves, and it wasn't, I don't know, DIY is so welcoming, and I just liked the community a lot better than like the art community that I was a part of. So that also makes a difference for me personally.
yeah, I mean, that's unfortunately, that's not the first time that I've heard that kind of sentiment, about the art scene. But I mean, I'm sure there's some places where that's not necessarily the case. But
Yeah, not to paint it as a whole. I'm just saying like
yeah,
what
yeah,
my experience with it was,
yeah.
for sure.
So this is your first band that you're taking out on the road, and
Yeah.
the first tour is not even underway yet. And you mentioned that you're feeling nervous about it. You had just released a new song, but it was just the
Yep.
one song, right?
We're also recording September 13th, and like that weekend. So we are going to be releasing new music, and it's hopefully going to be like mixed and mastered before we go on the tour. we don't know how many songs we're going to record. Right now it's looking like a couple, but we're super excited. We're recording with Dylan Fiskilla, and yeah, we're trying to do a lot before we hit the road.
How would people be familiar with their work? Like, who else have they recorded?
I think they have recorded my dad. They did some stuff with Akare. They did Ribbonhead, I think, in Chicago. They've recorded them.
Oh, okay.
Which is great.
And so basically you're assembling an EP including the song that you just released, or is this just something else altogether?
It's gonna be an EP, and it's gonna include Mason Kid.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Going back to your other interests, I noticed that there was a project on your site called Untitled Game Project, and I couldn't help but notice that the character reminded me a lot of Vivi from Final Fantasy IX. Did you play much Final Fantasy growing up?
I didn't. That was actually so I actually did the art for that, not the coding. That
okay.
Yeah. That I've actually gotten that comparison for that character a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I know Final Fantasy. I know they're all great games. I've been told to like play Final Fantasy VII. I do love games, but my life has been consumed by Dark Souls lately.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been down that myself, of course.
Yeah.
And so a lot of Dark Souls. What else inspired the art behind that particular project, or what inspired what kind of fantasy? Either games or other kinds of media did you grow up getting interested in?
For sure. I think for that game, we got to like a tutorial level for it, and we were inspired by like Ori and the Blind Forest.
Okay.
That's like a platformer game, and like the Rayman series, we kind of wanted that aesthetic for it. But I guess growing up, I was kind of like a nerd and really big into like Lord of the Rings, and
yeah.
I was a huge Lord of the Rings dork. I think before I even started listening to like punk music, I would just blast like Howard Shore, like the soundtrack to Lord of the Rings, or John Williams. It was so dorky. I wanted to be like a conductor as a child. It was strange. Like my mom would see me like waving my hands around like a dweeb. That's that's stuff I liked as a kid. But in relation to like, you mean in relation to that game, or like generally like Indisposed?
Just generally. Yeah, just generally.
Okay. I used to like a lot of indie films, and I was big on existentialism for a bit. Friedrich Nietzsche, Jean-Paul Sartre. I hope I'm not butchering that name. So, I don't know, my interests were all over the place. Yeah. I had like a Bukowski phase, like a Sylvia Plath phase. It was kind of all over the board, but definitely I would say like indie films and stuff like Donnie Darko or like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Trying to think of like other things that I really liked, but there was a lot.
For sure. When you were talking about nerdy soundtracks, and you said more than once, you said as a kid, and I just sitting here thinking, I just listened to Final Fantasy soundtracks like 2 nights ago.
That's awesome though. I guess like if I want to like spill what I listen to now, it might be like the Silent Hill soundtrack or something.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other ones. I love like There Will Be Blood's soundtrack.
Oh,
that movie.
Uh-huh.
I think Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead composed it.
I did not know that. Huh.
It's weird. Like I think again, I went down a Wikipedia hole and I think I saw that and I was like, huh. He's a
Yeah, I, c- I can't remember. I mean, I think the last time that I did that was, and it's not that I haven't been listening to this band for years and years. I just never did this. Was with Nine Inch Nails, where I just went from like who played on which album, and then finding out like about different parts of these people's lives, and just like finding out that like because Josh Freese played on some tours and whatnot, and like Josh Freese is married to an adult film star, and it's just like when you go
oh
down
wow.
those, yeah, it's just like when you go down that hole, and you're like, you realize like just all these people like that stem off from these projects, then their lives stem off, and it's kind of mind blowing. Like you never think the world is this small place, but
Yeah,
sometimes you just you know just
yeah.
stuff still blows your
Um,
mind.
yeah, it's strange because like I discovered Middleman Records when like I was in I think I was in college, and it was that compilation with Blue Friend on it called Consonants. I
Yeah,
don't know if I'm saying.
yeah,
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 yeah, and that's like when I was like getting into screamo again, and I think I went down a Bandcamp like genre tag hole, and I discovered a local Urbana band called like Enta, and then
right,
like years later, I find out I'm hanging out like with my friend Rebecca, who's Indisposed. She's in Indisposed, and we're at a show for a band called Bishop, and then I'm talking with the guitarist Bishop, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, my college band was a band called Enta." And I pulled out my phone and I showed him like still in my iTunes from college, like, oh, like you were like one of my favorite like screamo band projects. And he was like, no way, I thought we only had like two fans or something. Like he said something along those lines.
that's amazing.
But yeah, it's really small. It's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah, yeah, and they're playing again.
They are,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they asked us to do the show with them.
Oh yeah, are you gonna do it?
Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome. Yeah,
of course, yeah.
there you go. So that's yeah, it's the so you have this like full circle thing going in it, and also when you were talking about the consonants EP, there's a bit of like full circle stuff there too, because like yeah, that was a great project, and the band Pathos that was on it was fantastic. I mean, all the bands were, but um, Pathos, members from Pathos became Tapestry, and then Coma Regalia did a split with Tapestry. So that was a little bit of like full circle stuff there too, where it's like
That's wild.
it's really flattering to get to do these things with people that you've admired at different stages in your
Yeah,
life, and under different pretenses, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Yeah, it's really
yeah.
cool.
It's
It's
it's amazing.
it's it's wild. Um, well, I actually had I had kind of a lot of questions that were relating to artwork, and you've kind of initiated that you were at least putting that on a definite hiatus for the moment. Um, do you
Yeah.
do you still do indisposed artwork though? Do you do the artwork for?
So I did do the artwork for the EP, and the EP attachments.
Hmm.
That was like an old photograph actually from college time when I was getting back into screamo. It was actually supposed to be art reference for a drawing, and I ended up using it for the album cover years later, like half a decade later. And I think, we don't have on our Bandcamp, we need to add it, but we have a zine that I put together, where I did some of the artwork. A lot of it is just photo composites paired next to lyrics, and then some of the writing in it is not only Indisposed lyrics, but it's my writing, it's the band's writing itself, and like there's everything is like done kind of like in a halftone type of aesthetic. We give it out at shows, but we don't have it up on our Bandcamp. But I'm gonna add that soon. Yeah, some artwork's in there.
That's very cool. That sounds similar to like some of Neil Gaiman's projects with like different artists. Like maybe I think maybe he's done something similar with like P. Craig Russell or something, where there's just maybe even Dave McKean, but where there's just like writing and then there's visual art that relates like on a correlating page. Not so much a comic, but you know, a different sort of presentation of words and art. So that's really cool. I hope that we get to play a show sometime soon. Not only
Yeah, definitely.
just because I'd like to see y'all play, but also, you know, this other stuff that you're talking about sounds really, really awesome as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, if you ever come to Chicago, just like hit us up.
Yeah, for sure. So is there anything else that you wanted to plug, or?
Okay. Well, like doing a lot of booking lately, I've discovered like some screamo bands that I actually didn't know before, and there's this really great band called King Thunder.
Okay.
That I've been listening to a lot lately. Their song "Forever Circling" is like one of the best songs I've heard in a long time. But I honestly don't have any like other projects happening right now.
Okay.
But I guess I could say that like Indisposed is going on tour October 12th,
Okay.
and to look out for that.
And that was my conversation with Nina Palumbo. Thanks so much, Nina, for taking the time to chat with me. After our conversation, I couldn't help but think there are probably a lot of people that find themselves beholden to a certain situation because of the skills they have or what they went to school for. But I just want to remind you all that if you're in a situation that's making you miserable, it's never too late in life to make a change for the better. Until next time, take care and do good things.